You know what sound a casino makes when you hit $70,000? Nothing. Dead silence. No bells, no lights, no congratulations. Just a pit boss appearing from nowhere like a shadow, leaning close enough you can smell his coffee breath, whispering 4 words that'll freeze your blood. We need to talk. That's when I learned the dirtiest secret in gambling. The moment you actually win big, you become the enemy. And enemies don't get paid. They get investigated. For 3 months they held my money while their lawyers circled like sharks, searching for any reason, any microscopic technicality, to keep what I'd won fair and square. They thought I'd give up, walk away, disappear like the thousands before me who didn't know what I'm about to tell you. And listen, I'm going to tell you everything, not because I'm bitter, though I was, for a long time, but because what happened to me happens every single day in casinos across this country. And nobody talks about it. They talk about the wins. They talk about strategy. They talk about card counting and slot volatility and bankroll management. But nobody talks about what happens when the casino decides you've won too much. When you cross that invisible line from valued customer to mathematical problem that needs solving. This isn't a story about how to win at gambling. This is a story about what happens after you win. About the game that starts the moment the first game ends. And it's a game most people lose, not because they're wrong, but because they're alone, uninformed, and completely unprepared for the machinery that grinds into motion the second your win becomes inconvenient for the house. So, before we go any further, let me tell you why you need to hear this. Because you probably think casinos are just entertainment venues. Places where the odds are against you, sure. But if you win fair and square, they pay you. That's the deal, right? You risk your money, they risk theirs. And may the best outcome win. Except that's not how it works. Not when the numbers get big enough to matter. See, casinos are businesses, and like any business, they operate on predictable models. They know exactly how much the average person will lose per hour on every game. They know your breaking point, your tipping point, the psychological moment when you'll chase your losses or walk away satisfied with a small win. They've spent billions of dollars studying human behavior, optimizing floor layouts, perfecting the sensory experience, the lights, the sounds, the oxygen levels, the complimentary drinks, all designed to keep you playing longer and betting bigger. But here's what most people don't understand. That entire system is built on the assumption that the house wins. Not most of the time. All of the time, in aggregate. Sure, individual players win. That's necessary. That's the bait. But the system itself is designed to ensure that over time, the money flows one direction, from your pocket to theirs. So what happens when that flow reverses in a way that's significant enough to disrupt the model? What happens when you hit a jackpot so large that paying you actually becomes bad for business? That's the question I'm going to answer. And the answer is going to change how you see every casino you ever walk into. Most gambling advice tells you how to play the game. I'm going to tell you how the game plays you. Specifically, what happens during the one experience casinos desperately don't want you to understand, the aftermath of a genuine big win. You're going to discover the precise psychological and legal tactics casinos deploy to avoid paying large jackpots, why the system is designed to exhaust you emotionally before you ever see a courtroom, the paperwork traps, technical malfunction claims, and investigation procedures they weaponize against legitimate winners, how to protect yourself before you win, not after, Because by the time you're sitting in that grey room with no windows and a woman in a suit talking about irregularities, you're already behind. And here's the myth I'm going to shatter for you. People think casinos run on luck. They don't. They run on information asymmetry and psychological exhaustion. You think if you win fair, they have to pay? Wrong. They have to pay eventually, but only if you survive the gauntlet they put between you and your money. You think the Gaming Commission protects players? Partially true, but they're designed to resolve disputes in months or years, and most players can't wait that long. Most players are gambling with money they can't afford to lose, and absolutely cannot afford to wait months to recover. That's the trap. That's the weapon. Time. And I'm going to show you exactly how they used it against me and how I finally learned to use it against them. But first, let me take you back to the night it all started. The machine was a Dragon's Fortune Progressive. Nothing fancy. $5 spins. Been playing it for about 40 minutes while waiting for my buddy Jake to finish his poker tournament. This was a Thursday night in June, about 7:30, and the casino wasn't particularly crowded. I remember that detail because later it would matter. Later they'd pull the security footage and count exactly how many people were in visual range of my machine when it happened. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I wasn't even paying full attention to the game. Had my phone out, checking messages from work, scrolling through emails I should have dealt with during business hours. You know that thing where you're playing slots on pure muscle memory, where your brain isn't even tracking the spins anymore, just watching the balance slowly tick down while you wait for something else to finish. That's where I was. Press button. Wait 3 seconds. Press button. Wait 3 seconds. A rhythm so automatic I could do it in my sleep. The balance on the machine was down to about $85 from the $200 I'd started with. I remember thinking I'd give it maybe 10 more spins and then go grab a sandwich. Jake's tournament was going to run another 2 hours at least, and I was getting hungry. Then the screen did something I'd never seen before. It froze. Complete stillness. Not the normal spin freeze where the reels stop one by one, with that satisfying mechanical chunk, chunk, chunk. This was different. Everything just stopped mid-spin. So for a second, I thought the machine had crashed. I actually tapped the screen like that would do anything. Then every symbol started glowing gold, one by one, like dominoes falling upward. First the dragons on the left reel, then the middle, then the right, then the bonus symbols scattered across the screen, then the multiplier indicator in the corner, and then the counter, the progressive jackpot counter that I'd watched climb for months. Every time I walked past this machine, sitting at $67,420, suddenly became mine. With the bonus multiplier at 1.08, I was looking at $73,850. You know what I did? I laughed. Not because I was happy, because it felt fake. Like when you dream you found money and you know you're about to wake up. Like when something's so far outside your normal experience that your brain can't process it as real. I actually looked around to see if anyone else was seeing this. If this was really happening. If maybe the machine had malfunctioned and was showing me some test screen or error message that just happened to look like a jackpot. There was a woman, 2 machines overplaying penny slots. She hadn't noticed. A couple walking past with drinks, laughing about something they hadn't noticed. The cocktail waitress making her rounds 40 feet away, Hadn't noticed, just me and this screen full of gold and numbers that didn't make sense. I felt my heart start to race. That strange, dislocated feeling you get when reality suddenly pivots. Like the floor just tilted 5 degrees and you're the only one who felt it. That's when Marcus appeared. I need you to understand, Marcus was a pit boss I'd known casually for 3 years. We'd joked about sports, about his kids' baseball games. He'd comped me drinks a few times when I was having a rough night. Good guy, I thought. One of the friendly faces that made this casino feel less corporate, more like a neighborhood spot. We'd talked about the weather, about traffic, about nothing important. The kind of surface-level acquaintance you build when you frequent the same place long enough. He materialized beside my machine so fast I actually flinched. Like he'd been watching from somewhere. Waiting. Later, I'd learn that's exactly what happened. The machine was networked. The progressive jackpot hit triggered an automatic alert to the floor supervisor, and Marcus was assigned to me before the screen had finished its gold cascade animation. "Hey, congratulations," he said. But his smile was all wrong. Too tight. Lips stretched but not relaxed. Eyes not participating in the expression. The kind of smile you'd give to someone you're about to disappoint. "Big winner. We need to verify a few things as standard procedure. Can you come with me?" Standard procedure. Those words should have been my first warning, but I didn't know yet. I was still operating under the old assumptions, the assumptions that if you win, you celebrate. If you win big, you celebrate bigger. I thought standard procedure meant paperwork and a big ceremonial check, and maybe a photo for the casino's website. I stood up, legs a little shaky from adrenaline, and followed Marcus. My phone was still in my hand. On instinct, pure instinct, thank God, I turned back and took 3 photos of the machine screen. Just quick snapshots. The gold symbols, the progressive counter showing 0, the win total displayed at the bottom. I don't know why I did it. Maybe some subconscious part of my brain knew this felt wrong and was trying to protect me. Maybe I'd just watched too many true crime documentaries and learned to document everything. Those 3 photos probably saved my entire case. Marcus walked me past the cashier cage. Past it, you understand, not toward it. And I remember thinking that was odd, but not wanting to question it. Maybe they had a special VIP cashier for big wins. Maybe standard procedure meant something different for amounts over a certain threshold. I was rationalizing, trying to fit this weird experience into a shape that made sense. We entered a back hallway I didn't know existed. You know how casinos are designed to funnel you through specific paths. How you can wander around the gaming floor for hours but never stumble across the employee areas or back offices. This hallway was like stepping behind the curtain in Oz. Grey walls instead of red velvet, fluorescent lights instead of ambient gold, industrial carpet instead of plush. The complete opposite of the fantasy I'd just left. It even smelled different. Out on the floor, there's this carefully managed scent, whatever they pump through the ventilation to mask cigarette smoke and keep people comfortable. Back here, it smelled like cleaning solution and desperation, and something else I couldn't identify. Later, I'd realized that smell was fear, my own fear, soaking into my skin. We stopped at a door marked Security and Compliance, Authorized Personnel Only, and Marcus swiped a key card. The room inside was small, maybe 10 by 12 feet. A table in the center, 2 chairs on either side, and a camera in the corner mounted near the ceiling, The camera had a little red light glowing beneath the lens. Active, recording, like an interrogation room in a cop show, except it smelled like pine sol. "Have a seat," Marcus said, gesturing to the chair facing the camera. "Someone will be right with you." "How long?" I started to ask, but he was already leaving, the door clicking shut behind him with a sound that felt way too final. Then I was alone. I sat there for 47 minutes. I know because I counted everyone. My phone had no reception in that room. Either the walls were thick, or they had some kind of signal blocker. I never found out which. No window, no clock on the wall. Just me and my thoughts and that little red light, watching me from the corner, and a growing sense that something was terribly, fundamentally wrong. This is where the casino starts playing the real game. Because those 47 minutes weren't accidental. They weren't, "We're really busy, and someone will get to you when they can." That wait was strategic, calculated. Think about what happens to a person sitting alone in a small room for 47 minutes right after experiencing the highest high of their gambling life. You start to crash. The adrenaline fades. The euphoria turns to confusion, then anxiety, then fear. You start replaying everything that just happened, looking for what you did wrong. You start wondering if maybe the machine really did malfunction, if maybe you didn't actually win. If maybe this is all some elaborate misunderstanding, and they're going to come in here and tell you that there was an error, and you're not getting anything, and actually you owe them for the spins you played, and see how fast that spiral happens? That's what they're counting on. They want you off balance. They want you in a state where you're questioning your own reality. Because when you're in that state, you're pliable. You're ready to accept their version of events. You're ready to sign things you shouldn't sign. Agree to things you shouldn't agree to, just to make the discomfort end. I felt it happening to me. By minute 30, I was sweating. By minute 40, I was rehearsing apologies for something I hadn't done wrong. My brain was literally trying to find fault with myself to make sense of why I was being treated like a suspect instead of a winner. When the door finally opened, it wasn't Marcus. It was a woman in a charcoal suit, carrying a manila folder thick as a phone book. She introduced herself as Jennifer from Gaming Compliance and Security. Didn't give me a last name, didn't shake my hand. Just sat down across from me, opened that folder, and started arranging papers like she was preparing to deliver a diagnosis. She had this way of moving that was very controlled. Deliberate, nothing wasted, the folder settled on the table just so. The papers aligned with her fingertips. The pen placed parallel to the table edge. I remember thinking she'd done this exact ritual hundreds of times before. Thousands, maybe. "Mr. Patterson," she said. And that was the first time I realized they already knew everything about me. My name, obviously. But also my player's card history, my win-loss record, probably my credit score and employment history, and whether I'd ever disputed a parking ticket. That's what those 47 minutes before. They were building a file. "We've reviewed the machine data from your win, and we've identified several irregularities." My stomach dropped, just completely fell through the floor. "What kind of irregularities?" "The machine recorded 3 instances of unusual input patterns in the 40-minute period preceding your jackpot. Specifically, timing sequences that deviate from normal player behavior by margins that trigger our fraud detection protocols." I stared at her, trying to process what she was saying. Unusual input patterns? Timing sequences. "I was checking my phone," I said. "I was hitting the button without looking. That's not fraud. That's boredom. I'm not accusing you of anything, she said, which is exactly what people say when they're accusing you of everything. But until we complete our investigation, we cannot process your payout. Gaming regulations give us up to 90 days to verify the legitimacy of major wins. 90 days? Standard procedure. There it was again, standard procedure. The magic phrase that means we can do whatever we want and you can't stop us. She slid a form across the table. Single page, dense paragraphs of legal text in 9-point font. This acknowledges you understand we're withholding payment pending investigation. Sign here. I picked up the form, tried to read it, but the words just swam on the page. My brain was still trying to catch up. 90 days, investigation. I hadn't done anything wrong. I'd just pressed a button. The machine had paid out. That was it. That was the whole story. What if I don't sign? I asked. Jennifer's expression didn't change. Still perfectly neutral, perfectly controlled. Then we'll assume you don't wish to cooperate with our investigation, which unfortunately would extend our timeline indefinitely. Indefinitely. That word hung in the air like a threat. I looked at the camera in the corner, the little red light. I wondered who was watching this, who was making the real decisions while Jennifer delivered the script she'd been given. I signed. What else could I do? I was alone in a room with no phone signal, no legal representation, no idea what my rights were. Jennifer had all the power, the folder, the regulations, the procedure. I had nothing but confusion and fear, and a signature that would take me 3 months to regret. She took the form, added it to her folder, and stood up. Someone will contact you with updates as the investigation proceeds. Please make sure we have your current contact information. How often will you update me? As needed, she said, which is another way of saying, don't hold your breath. And then she left. Just like Marcus before her. Just like that, I went from winner to suspect to forgotten, all in the space of an hour. Marcus walked me back through that grey hallway. Back onto the casino floor where nothing had changed. Same lights, same sounds, same people playing the same games. My machine, the dragon's fortune that had just changed my life, already had someone else sitting at it, feeding it bills, chasing their own progressive jackpot that had reset to $50. The whole world was exactly the same as it had been 90 minutes ago, except I was different. I'd crossed a threshold, learned a truth, seen behind the curtain, and I had no idea how much worse it was going to get. Jake was still playing poker when I found him. I stood behind his chair, watching him consider a raise, and when he finally folded and looked up at me, he could tell immediately something was wrong. "You okay, man? You look like you've seen a ghost." "I hit the progressive on Dragon's Fortune," I said. 73,000. His eyes went wide. "Holy shit! That's incredible. Where's your check? Let me see it." "They're investigating me. Said there were irregularities. They're withholding payment for up to 90 days. The excitement drained from his face. "Investigating you for what?" "I don't know. Fraud detection protocols, unusual input patterns. I don't even know what that means." Jake shook his head slowly. "Man, I've heard of that happening, but I've never known anyone personally. They're really not going to pay you. Not for 90 days. Maybe not at all." He whistled low. "You need a lawyer." "I can't afford a lawyer. I've got maybe 3,000 in my checking account, and that's got to cover rent and bills, and—" I stopped, felt the absurdity wash over me. I'd just won $73,000, and I couldn't afford legal help. This is insane. Yeah, Jake agreed. Yeah, it really is. I drove home that night in a daze. Kept checking my phone even though there was nothing to check. No calls, no emails, just silence. The casino had my money, and I had paperwork I didn't understand and photos of a machine screen that might or might not matter. The next morning, I called the casino, asked to speak with gaming compliance, got transferred 3 times, left on hold for 26 minutes, finally got a voicemail, left a message. Nobody called back. Day 2, same thing. Day 3, I drove back to the casino, tried to talk to a floor manager. He was sympathetic but unhelpful. "I'm sorry, sir, but that's being handled by a different department. I can't access that information. Can you tell me who I should talk to?" "You should have received contact information from gaming compliance." "I didn't receive anything." "Just a form I signed." He looked uncomfortable. "I'll make sure someone reaches out to you." Nobody did. By day 7, I was starting to panic, not because I thought they were going to keep my money forever. Surely that wasn't legal. Surely there were protections, but because I'd already started spending it in my head. I'd mentally paid off my credit card, paid off my car, put a down payment on my sister's medical bills she'd been struggling with since her surgery last year. In my mind, that money was already doing good, already solving problems, and now it was locked away in some bureaucratic void where nobody would answer my calls. Day 14, I filed a complaint with the State Gaming Commission. Their website said to expect a response within 10 to 15 business days. That response came on day 37. A form letter acknowledging receipt of my complaint and informing me that an investigation would be opened and I should expect follow-up within 45 to 60 additional business days. So I was looking at day 97 minimum before the Gaming Commission would even start looking at my case. And the casino's internal investigation could take 90 days. And those timelines didn't overlap. They were sequential. I was looking at 6 months, minimum. And that was if everything went perfectly. Day 23, I borrowed $800 from my sister to make rent. The same sister whose medical bills I'd planned to help with. The irony was physically painful. Day 31, my credit card payment bounced. I called the bank, moved some money around, but I was now paying interest on a balance I'd thought I could eliminate. Day 39, my car made a noise that my mechanic said would cost $1,200 to fix properly or $300 to patch temporarily. I patched it. Day 46, I stopped sleeping properly. Just laid awake calculating how much interest I was accumulating, how much I was falling behind, how much my theoretical $73,000 windfall was actually costing me. This is the exhaustion economy I mentioned earlier. This is the weapon. They're not investigating me, they're bleeding me, making every day more expensive, making the wait more painful, making surrender look like mercy. And the worst part, I was starting to blame myself. Started thinking maybe I had done something wrong. Maybe my button-pressing rhythm really was suspicious. Maybe I'd somehow accidentally triggered some fraud detection algorithm. And this was all my own fault for being too distracted, too mechanical, too whatever. That's the identity trap I told you about. They make you defend your legitimacy, which means you're no longer thinking about them owing you money. You're thinking about whether you deserve to be paid at all. Day 51, I had a panic attack in my car outside a grocery store. Just couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. The world was too loud and too bright, and I felt like I was drowning standing still. That night, I sat down and wrote out everything that had happened. Every interaction, every phone call, every unanswered voicemail. Just stream of consciousness, dumping it all onto paper because I couldn't hold it in my head anymore. 11 pages, single-spaced. I read it back and realized something. The pattern wasn't about investigating my win. The pattern was about making me give up. Every unanswered call, every transferred line that went to voicemail, every "someone will get back to you" that turned into silence. It was all designed to make me feel helpless. Small, wrong. Day 63, I broke. Called the casino. Left a message saying I'd accept half. Just give me half the jackpot and we'll call it even. I'll sign whatever you want. Just end this. They never called back, not even to accept my surrender. That's when I finally understood. They didn't want half. They wanted all of it. And they wanted me to walk away so broken that I'd never come back. So defeated that I'd become a cautionary tale other players would whisper about. Remember that guy who thought he won? Yeah, don't be that guy. That's when Jake told me about Laura Chen. She's expensive, he warned me. But she's mean, in the best way. She specializes in casino disputes. One of my poker buddies used her when the Bellagio tried to claim his royal flush payout was invalid because he'd been drinking. She got him his money plus damages. How expensive? Probably 15% of what you win. Maybe more up front for retainer. I didn't have a retainer. I barely had groceries. But I called her anyway, expecting a receptionist, maybe a call back in a week if I was lucky. Laura herself answered on the second ring. Laura Chen, direct, no nonsense. A voice that sounded like it didn't waste time on pleasantries. Hi, my name is... Tell me what happened, she interrupted. Start from the jackpot. So I did. The whole story. The machine. Marcus, Jennifer, the grey room, the 90 days, the unanswered calls, the panic attacks, all of it. She didn't interrupt once, just let me spill it all out while she listened. When I finished, there was a long silence. Then, they're bleeding you. What? They're not investigating you. They're exhausting you. It's a strategy. You're what, 63 days in? Yes. So you're 2/3 through their maximum timeline. They know exactly what day 63 feels like. They know you're past the panic stage and deep into the desperation stage. They're waiting for you to break, to accept pennies on the dollar just to escape, or better yet, to give up completely and never come back. That's legal. It's barely legal. The 90-day clause exists to prevent fraud, but they've weaponized it. They've turned protection into predation. They've made the process itself the punishment. She paused, then said something that changed everything. They're not afraid of losing the money. 73,000 is pocket change for a casino. They're afraid of you winning the precedent. If they pay you quickly and fairly, every player in that building suddenly believes the system works. That's dangerous for them. They need you to suffer. They need everyone to see you suffer. It's a deterrent. I felt something shift in my chest, like a lock clicking open. So what do? You hurt them worse than they hurt you. But not with lawyers, with publicity, with documentation, with making it more expensive to fight you than to pay you. Can you pay a retainer? I can't pay my rent. Then we do contingency. 40% of what we recover. If we don't win, you don't pay. But you need to do exactly what I tell you, exactly when I tell you. Can you do that? I thought about my sister, about the bounced payments, about the 3 photos on my phone, about Jennifer's tight smile and the little red light in that grey room. I can do that. Good. First thing, stop calling them. Stop leaving messages. Every time you call, you look desperate, and desperation gives them power. From now on, all communication goes through me. Second thing, I need you to write down every single interaction you've had with them. Every call, every visit, every conversation. Dates, times, names if you have them, exact quotes where possible. Can you do that? I already did. 11 pages. Email it to me. Third thing, we're going to file a formal demand within 72 hours. Not a friendly request, a demand with a deadline. And if they don't meet that deadline, we go public. Press release, social media, every local news outlet that'll listen. Make them explain in public why they're refusing to pay a legitimate jackpot. Won't that make them angry? Oh, it'll make them furious. But anger makes people make mistakes. And we need them to make mistakes, because right now they've got all the cards. We need to take some back. I emailed her my 11 pages. She called me back 2 hours later. This is good, she said with him. Really good. You've documented a clear pattern of non-response. 11 unreturned phone calls. 4 in-person visits where you were stonewalled. 2 complaints to different departments that went nowhere. This is institutional bad faith. It's not quite fraud, but it's close enough to scare them. Scare them how? Because if this pattern becomes public, it opens them up to scrutiny on every other dispute, every other investigation. Gaming commissions don't like patterns. Patterns suggest systematic abuse rather than isolated incidents. And systematic abuse means audits, fines, license reviews. That's expensive. Much more expensive than $73,000. So we threaten them with publicity. We don't threaten, we inform. We tell them factually what will happen if they continue this pattern. And we give them a face-saving out. Pay you immediately, apologize for the delay, cite processing complexity, or whatever corporate speak lets them save face. Everyone moves on, or don't. And we make this the most expensive $73,000 they never saved. You really think that'll work? 90% of these cases settle within 2 weeks of real legal pressure. Not because the casino suddenly finds their conscience, because their legal team runs a cost-benefit analysis and realizes that fighting you costs more than paying you. It's just math. What about the other 10%? We go to war, but we'll burn that bridge if we come to it. Laura drafted the demand letter that afternoon, sent it via certified mail and email to the casino's legal department, copying the Gaming Commission and the local Better Business Bureau. The letter was 6 pages of legal precision, but the core message was simple. Pay within 14 days, or we file suit and go public. The language was elegant and brutal. It didn't accuse them of fraud. It questioned their commitment to regulatory compliance and customer satisfaction. It didn't threaten a lawsuit. It regretfully anticipated the necessity of judicial intervention. It didn't mention publicity. It expressed concern that public discourse around payment processing irregularities might undermine consumer confidence in licensed gaming establishments. Corporate speak translation: pay up or we'll make you famous for all the wrong reasons. We sent it on day 67. I spent the next 14 days in a state of suspended animation. Not hopeful. I'd learned not to be hopeful, but not defeated either. Laura had given me something I'd lost. Agency. The sense that I wasn't just a victim waiting for mercy, but a participant with tools and tactics, and someone who knew how to use them. Day 73, the casino's legal team called Laura. Not me. They still wouldn't talk to me directly. They wanted to discuss a resolution. That means they're scared, Laura told me. When they want to discuss, it means they're looking for the cheapest exit. The first offer came on day 76. $40,000. Full release of all claims, non-disclosure agreement. They're offering me $40,000. That's not even 60%. It's an opening bid. They're testing how desperate you are. If you take this, it confirms their strategy works. Withhold long enough, and people will settle for anything. So we reject it. We counter with full amount plus documented damages, lost wages from dealing with this, legal fees, interest on the delayed payment. We're asking for $91,000 total. They'll never pay that. They'll never pay 91, but they might pay 80 or 78. The point is, we're negotiating from strength now, not weakness. Day 79, they countered with 55,000. Laura countered with 85. They came back with 68. Laura held at 82. This went on for 8 more days. Numbers flying back and forth. Each offer carefully calculated. Each counter strategically positioned. On day 87, they agreed to $73,850, my full jackpot, plus $9,000 for processing delays and associated hardship. $82,850, paid within 5 business days, plus my legal fees capped at 20%, not 40%. I actually cried when Laura called me with the final number. Not from happiness, from relief so profound it felt like pain. Like I'd been holding my breath for 3 months and could finally exhale. Why did they give in? I asked when I could speak again. Because it became more expensive to fight than to settle. Between my fees, their legal team's hours, and the risk of publicity, they were already in for 40 or 50,000 just managing the dispute. Paying you another 30 became the smart business decision. So it was never about whether I deserved it. It was never about whether you deserved it, she confirmed. It was always about what they could get away with. You just refused to let them get away with it. The check cleared on day 93. I went to the bank at 9 a.m. the moment they opened, held my breath while the teller processed the deposit, watched the numbers appear on the screen like magic. $82,850. I paid off my credit card that day, paid my sister back, got my car properly fixed, bought myself dinner at a restaurant where I didn't look at the prices, but mostly I sat in my apartment and felt something I hadn't felt in 3 months. Calm. Not happiness, that would come later. Just calm. The absence of panic. The ability to breathe without that tight band around my chest. And I thought about all the people who didn't make it to day 93. Who gave up at day 30 or day 60 or day 89. Who accepted the lowball offers or walked away completely. Who signed the releases and the NDAs and disappeared back into the casino's acceptable loss column. I thought about the system that makes you feel like a criminal for winning, that weaponizes time and silence and bureaucracy, that turns your victory into your punishment. And I realized something. This isn't about one jackpot. It's about every jackpot, every big win. Every moment when a player crosses that invisible line from acceptable loss to unacceptable win. The house doesn't lose because you win. The house loses when you understand the game behind the game. When you refuse to play by rules designed to break you. Let me tell you what I learned in those 93 days. The real lessons. The ones they don't want you to know. First lesson. The house doesn't lose, it reframes. When I hit that jackpot, I thought I'd beaten the casino. I hadn't. I'd triggered a different game entirely, with new rules I didn't know existed. Here's what casinos understand that most players don't. Losing money on a slot machine or a table game isn't actually losing. That's the cost of business. That's expected variance. The real loss is when a player wins big and tells everyone the system is fair. Because fairness creates hope, and hope brings crowds. But uncontrolled hope, the kind where people actually expect to win and get paid, that's dangerous. So when you win big, you're not a success story. You're a problem to be managed. Think about it. When you win $50 at slots, they're thrilled. They'll celebrate with you. Maybe comp you a drink, because that $50 win costs them nothing. It buys your dopamine, your loyalty, and 3 more hours of play where you'll give it back, plus interest. But 70,000, that's different. That's enough to actually matter. To pay off debt, make investments, change your life trajectory. That's enough to make you walk away forever, satisfied. And satisfied customers don't come back. They don't feed the machine. They don't contribute to the quarterly earnings. That's why Jennifer talked about irregularities. She wasn't investigating fraud. She was manufacturing doubt. In me, in the system, in anyone watching. Because if I had walked out with my money quickly and cleanly, I would have become a story. People would have said, "Hey, I heard about a guy who actually won big and got paid right away. Maybe this place is legit." Can't have that. Better to make me suffer publicly. Better to make me a cautionary tale. Better to ensure that anyone thinking about chasing a big jackpot knows what waits on the other side. Not celebration, but interrogation. Not reward, but suspicion. The lesson is this. The house doesn't care if you win. It cares about controlling what your win means. It cares about the narrative. And the narrative they want is simple. Big wins are complicated. Big wins come with asterisks and investigations and delays. Big wins might not even be real. That narrative keeps people playing for small wins. Acceptable wins. Wins that don't disrupt the model. Second lesson, the illusion of protection. You think there are safeguards. Gaming commissions, regulations, cameras everywhere ensuring fairness. Let me tell you what those systems actually do. They protect the casino from obvious fraud while giving you the illusion of protection. When I filed my complaint with the State Gaming Commission, their response time was 45 to 60 business days, just to assign an investigator. Then another 30 days minimum for investigation. That's 4 to 5 months before someone even looks at my case. Meanwhile, I'm bleeding money. Missing work to deal with this. Paying bills with credit cards. Watching interest accumulate. The casino knows this timeline because they helped create it. See, regulations aren't designed for speed. They're designed for thoroughness. Which sounds fair until you realize that thoroughness takes time, and time is a weapon. The casino has unlimited time. They have unlimited legal resources. They have teams of attorneys on salary who can file motions and responses and delays without thinking twice about the cost. They can wait you out while sipping coffee and reviewing spreadsheets. You've got rent due in 3 weeks. You've got a car payment. You've got a credit card balance growing like a tumor. You've got a life that can't pause for 6 months, while bureaucrats investigate whether you deserve money you already won. That asymmetry, that fundamental imbalance of resources and patience, is built into the system. The Gaming Commission isn't corrupt. I'm not saying they're bought off or deliberately dragging their feet. They're just slow. And slow justice is no justice when you're drowning. Here's the darker truth. The very regulations meant to protect you also protect them. Because we're conducting a thorough investigation per gaming regulations sounds legitimate, responsible even. It gives them cover to do exactly what they're doing, stalling, while appearing to follow all the rules. They're not breaking the law. They're exploiting the space between the law and decency. This is why Laura told me documentation would matter more than legality. They're not breaking the law, she said, but they're absolutely breaking faith, and we can make breaking faith expensive. Third lesson: the exhaustion economy. Casinos operate on what I now call the exhaustion economy. And it's not just about this jackpot situation. It's woven into everything they do. Think about the environment itself. Why is there no natural light in a casino? Why are there no clocks? Why do they pump oxygen through the ventilation and play music at specific frequencies designed to elevate your heart rate just enough to keep you alert, but not enough to make you anxious? Why are the paths through the gaming floor deliberately maze-like, forcing you to walk past hundreds of machines just to find the exit? Because exhaustion makes you pliable. Confusion makes you impulsive. Disorientation makes you stop thinking critically. When you're exhausted, you don't ask questions. You accept. You comply. You make decisions based on wanting the discomfort to end rather than what's actually in your best interest. This is exactly what happened to me in that grey room. I was riding an adrenaline high from the win, then crashed into confusion and fear. By the time Jennifer showed up with her folder full of accusations disguised as concerns, I was emotionally depleted. I signed that form not because I understood it or agreed with it, but because I wanted the discomfort to end. I wanted to get out of that room. I wanted to go back to the world where things made sense. That's the play. They create discomfort, then offer you an escape, but the escape requires surrender. Fast forward 60 days, and they're doing it again. Just on a longer timeline. They wait until you're at your weakest, financially, emotionally, psychologically. Then they offer you an exit. Just sign this settlement for half, just walk away, just stop fighting. And when you're exhausted enough, when your sister's calling about rent and your car's making that noise again, and you haven't slept properly in weeks, and you can't remember what it felt like to not be constantly worried about money, half sounds like mercy. That's how they win without ever going to court. Laura told me 93% of casino disputes settle before trial. Not because the players don't have a case, not because the law isn't on their side. Because they can't afford to keep fighting. They run out of money or energy or hope, and they take whatever scraps are offered just to make it stop. Laura explained it like this. They're not trying to prove you're wrong. They're trying to make you too tired to prove you're right. And against most people, that strategy works. It almost worked on me. Day 63, when I called and offered to settle for half, I was done, completely broken. If they'd answered that call, if they'd said yes, I would have signed whatever they wanted. I would have walked away with 35,000 instead of 82. I would have let them win. The only reason I didn't is because they were so confident in their strategy that they didn't even bother responding to my surrender. They wanted all of it. They wanted me to give up completely, sign a release, and disappear. They got greedy, and that greed gave me just enough time to find Laura. Fourth lesson: the identity trap. Here's something nobody tells you about winning big in a casino. It messes with your sense of self in ways you don't expect. Before the jackpot, I was just a regular player. I won some, lost more, came for the entertainment and the atmosphere. My identity wasn't wrapped up in gambling. It was just something I did occasionally, like going to movies or playing basketball. A hobby, a diversion. But the moment that screen froze and those symbols glowed gold, something shifted. Suddenly I was a winner. Not just someone who won, but a winner with a capital W. Someone special. Someone who beat the odds. Then, just as quickly, I became a fraud suspect. Someone whose win was irregular. Someone who needed investigating. Someone whose button-pressing rhythm was suspicious enough to trigger protocols. Then I became a victim. Someone being mistreated by a faceless corporation. Someone fighting for justice. Then a fighter. Someone who wouldn't back down. Someone who hired a lawyer and made demands. My identity kept shifting, kept being redefined by external forces, until I didn't know who I was anymore. Was I lucky or suspicious? Deserving or entitled? Victim or fighter? The casino did this deliberately, not to me specifically, but to the situation. By questioning the legitimacy of my win, they made me question myself. Did I do something wrong? Was I paying too much attention? Not enough attention? Did my rhythm really look like fraud? What if there really was an irregularity I didn't notice? This is the identity trap. They make you defend your legitimacy, which means you're no longer talking about them paying what they owe. You're talking about whether you deserve to be paid at all. It's genius in a sick way. They shift the burden from "we need to prove you cheated" to "you need to prove you didn't." And that subtle flip, from innocent until proven guilty to guilty until proven innocent, changes everything. It changes how you think about yourself, how you tell your story, how you feel about your own win. I spent the first month of that 90-day period angry at them, righteously furious at the injustice of it all. I spent the second month angry at myself, replaying every button press, every distraction, every moment I wasn't paying full attention, wondering if I'd somehow accidentally triggered their fraud detection by being too bored, or too rhythmic, or too mechanical. Wondering if maybe, in some technical sense I didn't understand, I actually had done something wrong. That's what they want. They want you to internalize the blame, to make their problem your shame. Day 58, Laura snapped me out of it. I was on the phone with her, spiraling again about whether my timing really was irregular, and she cut me off mid-sentence. "Stop defending yourself," she said, sharp enough to break through my anxiety. "You didn't do anything wrong, and even if you had, they need to prove it. The machine paid out. The software approved it. The jackpot was legitimate. Everything else is their problem, not yours. Stop making it yours." She was right. But God, it took me weeks to internalize that. To stop carrying their accusation like it was my burden. The lesson? Don't let them make you the villain of your own story. You won. That's the beginning and end of it. Everything else, the investigations, the delays, the questions, that's their choice, their strategy, their problem, not yours. Fifth lesson. The paper trail is everything. This is the tactical lesson that genuinely saved my case. Document everything, not just after things go wrong, before, during, always. The day I won, I took 3 photos of the machine screen. Just instinct. I didn't consciously think I might need evidence later. I just felt like this moment was important enough to capture. Those 3 photos, showing the gold symbols, the progressive counter at 0, the win amount displayed, probably saved my entire case. Because when Jennifer started talking about irregularities and fraud detection protocols, I had proof. Proof that the machine had paid out. Proof of the exact amount. Proof time-stamped to the minute. She couldn't claim the machine had malfunctioned, or that I'd misread the screen, or that the jackpot was smaller than I claimed. It was right there in digital clarity. Then, once the investigation started, I did something Laura later said was brilliant. I created a timeline. Not just dates, but detailed accounts of every interaction, every phone call, every email, every in-person visit. Who said what, when, with exact quotes where possible. Day 1, I called gaming compliance at 10:47 a.m., spoke with someone named Michelle, who said someone would call me back within 48 hours. Day 3, no callback. I called again at 2:15 p.m., left a voicemail for Jennifer. Day 7, still no response. I drove to the casino, spoke with a floor manager named Robert who said he'd follow up. Day 9, Robert never followed up. I called the Gaming Commission and filed a complaint. On and on. Every interaction documented, every promise broken, every "someone will get back to you" that turned into silence. By day 30, I had 11 pages. By day 60, 28 pages. Dates, times, names, quotes, outcomes. A complete chronological record of systematic non-response. When we finally sent our formal legal demand to the casino, the one that threatened going public with this timeline, they folded within 11 days. Not because the timeline proved I was right about the jackpot. Because it proved they were wrong about the process. It showed a pattern. Not a single mistake or miscommunication, but a deliberate, systematic pattern of delay. Of unreturned communications. Of what Laura called institutional bad faith. Laura explained it like this. Casinos are terrified of documentation because it turns your experience from an anecdote into evidence. One person saying they treated me badly is a complaint. It's your word against theirs. 50 pages of time-stamped communications showing systematic delay with names and dates. That's a lawsuit they'll lose publicly. That's a pattern that makes regulators ask questions. That's expensive. The paper trail doesn't just protect you legally. It protects you psychologically. When you're drowning in confusion and doubt, when you start wondering if maybe you're overreacting or misremembering or making too big a deal out of this, having concrete facts written down reminds you that you're not crazy. This really happened. These people really said these things. You really did call 11 times. They really didn't call back. Your memory isn't failing. You're not being unreasonable. Documents don't lie. Documents don't gaslight. Documents are objective reality in a situation deliberately designed to make you question reality. 6th lesson. The real game was always emotional. Here's the truth I resisted for 70 days. The truth that finally clicked when I was sitting in my car after another panic attack. This was never about the money. I mean, it was about the money. I desperately needed that $73,000. But the casino's strategy wasn't primarily financial. It was emotional. They wanted me to feel shame for winning, guilt for fighting, fear of losing, anger at the system, desperation to escape. Every possible negative emotion except the one I actually deserved to feel. Pride, because I did win, fair and square. I played their game by their rules, and I won. But they couldn't let me feel good about that. Couldn't let me walk out of there with my head high and my pockets full, and a story about how the system actually works sometimes. So they turned my win into a problem, turned my victory into a burden, turned my legitimate claim into a battle. This is the core of how casinos operate. Not just with jackpots, but with everything. They're not selling you games of chance. They're selling you emotional experiences. The thrill of almost winning, the rush of hope, the numbness of loss, the fantasy that one more spin might change everything, the camaraderie of shared risk. The escape from whatever problems you walked in with. And when you actually do win big enough to walk away, they sell you a different emotion, the fear of losing it, even after you've won it. That's why Jennifer in that grey room didn't yell or threaten. She didn't need to. She just introduced doubt, irregularities, investigation, fraud detection protocols. She knew those words would eat at me, would wake me up at 3 a.m., would make me replay every moment, would make me wonder if I somehow deserved this treatment. The emotional game is invisible, but omnipresent. It's in the way Marcus's smile was wrong, the way that room had no clock, the way Jennifer arranged her papers before speaking, the way they never answered my calls, but always let them go to voicemail, forcing me to leave messages where I sounded increasingly desperate. Every element was designed to make me feel small, wrong, guilty, exhausted. The counterplay? Recognize the emotional game. Name it. Say it out loud. They're trying to make me feel guilty. They're trying to exhaust me. They're trying to make me doubt myself. Once you see the game, it loses power. Not all its power. Emotions don't work that way. But enough. Enough to keep fighting. Enough to remember that what you're feeling is manufactured, not earned. Laura taught me this on day 72, when I was spiraling again, and she said something I'll never forget. They can delay your money, but don't let them delay your clarity. You won. They owe you. Everything else is manipulation. Say it back to me. I won. They owe me. Everything else is manipulation. Again, I won. They owe me. Everything else is manipulation. Good. Now, when you wake up at 3 a.m. and your brain starts spinning, that's what you say. You won. They owe you. Everything else is manipulation. Make it your mantra. I did, and it helped. Not perfectly. I still had bad days. But it gave me something to hold on to when everything else felt like quicksand. So now, let me get practical, because understanding these lessons doesn't help if you don't know how to apply them. If you're going to gamble, really gamble, not just toss $20 at penny slots. You need to protect yourself before you need protection. First, create a pre-win protocol. I know it sounds paranoid. You're thinking, I'm just here to have fun, not to document everything like I'm building a legal case. But here's the thing. By the time you need protection, it's too late to create it. You need it in place before anything happens. Step 1. Photograph everything. The machine number, the timestamp, your player's card inserted, the screen showing your balance. If you hit anything over $5,000, take multiple photos from multiple angles. Modern phones timestamp these automatically, which creates a record that's nearly impossible to dispute. Step 2. Know the rules before you play. Not the game rules, you probably know those. The payout rules. Most casinos have policies posted online about verification procedures for wins over certain thresholds. Screenshot these, save them. Because if the casino changes their story later, if they claim their investigation policy is 90 days when their website says 30, or if they claim certain procedures are standard when they're actually discretionary, you'll have proof of what they originally stated. Step 3. Bring a witness for big wins. I didn't do this because I wasn't expecting to win. Nobody expects to win. But Laura told me about a client who had a friend filming his slot play for YouTube when he hit a massive progressive. That video evidence showing normal continuous play fast-tracked his payout. Because the casino couldn't claim irregularities or suspicious timing without contradicting footage showing someone just pressing a button repeatedly like everyone does. Step 4. Create a contemporaneous account. The moment you hit big, if you have time before casino staff arrives, text yourself a description of what happened. At 5:47 p.m., Dragon's Fortune Machine 2847 hit progressive jackpot. Total 73.50, playing normally. No issues with machine. This creates a time-stamped record that's harder to dispute than memory weeks later. It's your version of events recorded at the moment they happened, not reconstructed through the fog of stress and time. Second, if you end up in my situation, in that grey room facing standard procedure, dealing with an investigation, here's how to survive it. Technique 1. Start a documentation compulsion. Buy a notebook, not a phone app, not scattered notes, an actual physical notebook that you can show to a lawyer or judge if needed. Every interaction with the casino goes in it. Date, time, person's name. Get business cards or name tags if you can. What was said, what was promised, what actually happened. This serves two purposes. It keeps you grounded in facts when emotions run high, and it creates evidence if things escalate. Your brain will try to minimize or maximize what you cut into what's happening, depending on your emotional state. The notebook doesn't care about your emotional state. The notebook is objective reality. Technique 2. Never accept verbal promises. This is critical. After every phone call or meeting, send an email summarizing the conversation. Thanks for speaking with me today. Just to confirm, you said the investigation would be complete by October 15th, and I would hear from you by October 17th at the latest. Please let me know if I misunderstood anything. This does two things. It forces the casino to either confirm or correct your understanding, creating a written record of their commitments. And it makes them aware that you're documenting everything, which changes their behavior. People are more careful about what they promise when they know it's being recorded. Technique 3. Know your escalation path before you need it. Casino management, gaming commission, gaming attorney, press. Most disputes resolve at level 2 or 3, but knowing the full path prevents panic. You're not helpless, you're not trapped. You have options, and each option has specific procedures and timelines. Research gaming attorneys in your area before you need one. Know what they charge, what their specialties are, whether they work on contingency. Because trying to find a lawyer when you're panicking on day 60 is much harder than having a name and number saved on day 1. Technique 4. Build an emotional firewall. This is the hardest one. You need to separate your emotional state from their delays. Your feelings are valid. Anger, frustration, fear, all of it. But you can't let those feelings dictate your strategy. Every morning, write down 3 facts. I won legitimately. They owe me money. Their delay doesn't change facts 1 or 2. Sounds simple, sounds almost childish. But when you're drowning in stress, when you're lying awake at night catastrophizing about worst-case scenarios, you need anchors. You need objective reality to be your life raft when everything else feels like quicksand. Third, understand preemptive defense. Here's what I wish someone had told me years before, that jackpot, before I ever started gambling seriously. Mental Framework 1. The house edge isn't just mathematical. When you walk into a casino, remember, the edge isn't just in the odds. It's not just that blackjack has a 0.5% house advantage, or that slots return 92 cents on the dollar. The edge is in the environment, the psychology, the procedures, the fine print, the fact that they have unlimited resources and you don't. You're not just playing against probability. You're playing against a system designed at every level to transfer wealth from you to them. This doesn't mean don't play. I still gamble occasionally, but it means play consciously. Know you're paying for entertainment, and the moment you forget that, the moment you start thinking you're investing or earning or somehow building wealth through gambling, they've already won. You've already lost the most important game, which is the game of expectations. Mental Framework 2. Decide your exit before your entrance. Before you sit down at any game, decide your exit conditions. Not just dollar amounts, emotional exits. If I feel desperate, I leave. If I'm chasing losses, I leave. If I stop having fun, I leave. These aren't just smart gambling tips. These are protection against the identity trap. Because once your identity becomes wrapped up in winning or losing, once your self-worth starts fluctuating with your chip stack, you've given them control over something far more valuable than money. You've given them control over how you see yourself. Mental Framework 3. Be grateful for small losses. This sounds counterintuitive, maybe even masochistic, but it works. When I lost $300 before hitting that jackpot, I was annoyed. But, in hindsight, that loss kept me emotionally level. I wasn't euphoric. I wasn't feeling invincible. I was just playing. When you lose a little and walk away clean, you've paid for an experience without paying the ultimate cost. The belief that you can beat a system designed to be unbeatable. That's not pessimism. That's freedom. That's understanding the game without being owned by it. Fourth, know when to lawyer up. Laura charged me $12,000. Best money I never would have spent if I'd had any choice. But not everyone needs an attorney, and attorneys aren't free. So here's how to know if you need one. You need a lawyer if the amount at stake is over $25,000. The casino has formally accused you of fraud or violation. They've invoked a malfunction. Voids all pays clause. You've passed 90 days with no resolution, or your gaming commission complaint went nowhere. You probably don't need a lawyer if the delay is under 30 days. The amount is under $10,000. They're still communicating with you regularly showing progress, or the Gaming Commission investigation is actually active and moving forward. But here's the most important part. Find an attorney who specializes in gaming law. Not a general litigator. Not your cousin who does personal injury. Someone who has fought casinos specifically, repeatedly, successfully. Laura knew which threats worked and which didn't, because she'd been in these fights hundreds of times. She knew which legal arguments casinos feared and which they'd dismiss. She knew when to negotiate and when to escalate. That knowledge is worth every penny of her fee. Fifth, protect yourself after you win. Let's say you get your money. Either they pay you outright, or you fight and prevail like I did. What now? This is where people make costly mistakes. Post-win step 1. Disappear from that casino. I know it sounds dramatic, but I'm serious. Take your money and vanish. They will send you offers. Complimentary rooms, free chips, VIP status, invitations to special events, personal hosts assigned to your account. It's all bait. They want you back. They want you to voluntarily return your winnings to them through continued play. And statistically, it works. Most big winners give it all back within a year because they start believing they've figured something out. They've found their lucky machine. They're on a hot streak. You haven't figured anything out. You got lucky. Lightning doesn't strike the same place twice. And even if it did, you wouldn't survive the paperwork again. Post-win step 2. Protect the money immediately. Big wins create a psychological vulnerability. Suddenly you feel rich, invincible, like you've unlocked some secret pattern in the universe. Like you're special. You're not special. You're lucky. There's a difference. Special suggests replicability. Lucky suggests randomness. Don't confuse them. Put that money somewhere you cannot easily access. Pay off high-interest debt. Put a down payment on something stable. Invest in the most boring, reliable vehicles available. Don't let it become the stake for your next big win attempt. Because there is no next big win. There's only the slow statistical grind of the house edge, taking back what randomness temporarily gave you. Post-win step 3. Tell your story, but tell it right, not for revenge, for protection. The more people who know what happens when you actually win big, the harder it becomes for casinos to pull these tactics. Silence is their greatest weapon. Isolation is their greatest tool. That's why I'm telling you all this now. Not because I'm bitter. I'm actually grateful for what I learned. But because every person who stays silent makes the next person's fight harder. Every NDA that gets signed, every settlement that includes a non-disclosure clause, every person who just wants to move on and forget it happened. That silence protects the casino, not future winners. So, I'm breaking that silence. And if this happens to you, I hope you'll break it too. Not with anger or accusations, but with facts. With your timeline. With what actually happened versus what they claimed would happen. Because the only way this system changes is if enough people refuse to be quietly defeated by it. Now we're at day 93. The check finally cleared. All $73,850 plus that additional $9,000 Laura negotiated for emotional distress. Though honestly, no amount of money compensates for 3 months of feeling like you're losing your mind, hey? 3 months of panic attacks and sleepless nights, and that constant low-grade nausea that comes from not knowing if you're going to lose everything. But here's what I gained that's worth more than the jackpot. I stopped believing in the myth that casinos are just entertainment venues where the house has an edge, but everyone's playing fair within agreed-upon rules. The myth that winning big is a dream come true, a moment of pure joy without complication. The myth that these buildings full of lights and sounds and carefully managed experiences are somehow neutral spaces where luck is the only force at play. Winning big wasn't my dream come true. It was my nightmare. Not the winning itself. That moment when the screen froze and the symbols glowed gold was one of the best moments of my life. But everything after. The grey room, Jennifer's folder, the unanswered calls, the weeks of doubt, the financial bleeding, the identity crisis, the realization that the game I thought I was playing was not the game being played on me. It was my nightmare until I learned to fight back. Until Laura taught me that I wasn't helpless. Until I understood that the real game wasn't on the casino floor. It was in the back offices, in the legal clauses, in the psychological warfare designed to make people like me quit. And here's what finally broke through my despair on day 74. sitting in my car outside a grocery store where I couldn't afford to buy what I needed. You don't beat the house by getting lucky. You beat the house by refusing to let them make you feel unlucky when luck actually found you. You beat them by documenting everything, by staying clear-headed when they're trying to cloud your judgment, by building a paper trail they can't explain away, by finding people like Laura who understand that the real game isn't the cards or the reels, it's the system itself. And most importantly, you beat them by realizing you were never meant to beat the house. You were meant to stop letting it beat you. That's the difference. That's the shift that changed everything for me. I wasn't trying to beat the casino at gambling. I was trying to beat the casino at being a casino, at using their size and resources and legal advantages to exhaust me into submission. And once I understood that distinction, once I stopped playing their game and started playing mine, everything changed. I still gamble sometimes. Once every few months, I'll go to a casino. Small stakes, clear limits, $20 bills I can afford to lose. I'll play for an hour, maybe two, and then I leave. Win or lose, I leave, but I'm not chasing jackpots anymore. I'm not chasing anything. I'm just being there, in the moment, enjoying the sensory experience without attachment to outcomes. Because I know what lies on the other side of a big win now. And it's not freedom. It's a fight. A fight that most people lose not because they're wrong, but because they're alone and unprepared and completely outmatched by a system that's had decades to perfect the art of separating winners from winnings. I won my fight. I got my money. I survived. But I also learned something crucial, something that's worth more than $82,000. The best way to win is not to need to fight at all. The best way to beat the casino is to stop believing that beating the casino is possible or even desirable. To stop investing your identity in outcomes you cannot control. To stop thinking that one lucky break will solve problems that have nothing to do with luck. So if you take one thing from this story, if you remember nothing else, let it be this. The house doesn't lose because you win. Winning is part of their business model. Expected variance, acceptable cost. The house loses when you stop playing a rigged game and start living an unrigged life. When you stop giving them power over your emotions, your self-worth, your dreams. When you stop believing that happiness lives inside a building designed specifically to extract happiness and replace it with hope, and hope with desperation, and desperation with habit. I walked out of that casino on day 93 with more money than I'd ever had. But the real wealth wasn't the check that cleared. It was the clarity that came with it. The understanding that I'd been playing the wrong game for years, that I'd been investing hope and time and energy into a system designed to give me neither return nor respect. And now, sitting here telling you this story, I realize the most valuable thing I won wasn't the jackpot. It was perspective, the ability to see casinos for what they actually are, not what they pretend to be. They're not temples of luck, they're engines of extraction. And they're brilliant at it, absolutely brilliant. But brilliance in service of taking your money while making you feel grateful for the experience, that's not something to admire. That's something to understand so you can protect yourself from it. If this story changed how you see casinos, if it shifted something in how you think about gambling or fighting systems that feel unbeatable, let me know in the comments. Tell me about your experiences, the things you've witnessed, the battles you've won or lost, the moments when you realized the game was different than you thought. And if you think someone in your life needs to hear this, someone who gambles too much, someone who's chasing losses, someone who believes they're about to hit it big, someone who just won big and doesn't know what's coming, share this with them. Not because I need views or subscribers or any of that, but because they might need the knowledge. They might need to hear that they're not alone, that what feels like a personal failing is actually a systematic exploitation. Sometimes the best jackpot isn't money, it's clarity, it's understanding. It's the moment when you see through the illusion and realize you've been playing someone else's game by someone else's rules, and you have the power to just stop. Hit that like button if this resonated with you. If it made you think differently, feel differently, understand something you didn't understand before. Subscribe if you want more stories from the edges of human experience, where the rules bend and the truth hides and the real games aren't the ones being advertised. I'll see you at the next table. But I won't be betting against me anymore. I won't be giving away my power to a machine or a system, or a building full of carefully engineered experiences designed to make me forget what I know to be true. That I'm enough, that I have enough, that luck is something that happens, not something to chase. And neither should you. You're not broken. You're not unlucky. You're not failing at some game you're supposed to master. You're just a human being trying to find happiness in a world that's really good at selling you expensive substitutes. The real win is realizing that before you lose everything trying to find it. That's the jackpot they can't touch. The one that compounds instead of depletes. The one that actually changes your life. So take care of yourself out there. Play if you want to play, but play consciously. Know the real odds. Know the real game. Know that the lights and sounds and promises are all designed to separate you from clarity. And clarity is your most valuable asset. And if you ever hit it big, really big, life-changing big, remember what I told you. Document everything. Trust no one. Get a lawyer who specializes in this. Build your paper trail. Protect your emotional state. Don't let them make you the villain of your own story. You won. They owe you. Everything else is manipulation. Say it until you believe it, because it's true, and the truth is the only thing that'll get you through today. 93 intact. I'm grateful for my experience now. Strange as that sounds. Grateful for the lesson. Grateful for Laura. Grateful for the strength I found when I thought I had none left. Grateful even for Jennifer and Marcus and that grey room, because they taught me something I needed to learn. That systems only have the power over you that you give them. And you can take that power back. It won't be easy. It won't be fast, but it's possible. And possible is enough. Possible is everything. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for letting me tell this story that needed telling. And remember, the house doesn't win because you lose. The house wins when you forget that you're more than a player in their game. When you forget that you're a human being with value that has nothing to do with chips or cards or spinning reels. Don't forget. Please don't forget. Take care of yourself. And if you see someone else struggling, someone caught in their own version of my grey room, remind them they're not alone. They're not crazy. And they're stronger than they know. That's it. That's everything I learned, and I really hope, you never need to use it. But if you do, at least now you'll know you're not the first. You're not alone, and you can win, not at gambling, at something more important, at staying yourself while the system tries to reshape you into someone who gives up. Good luck out there. The kind of luck that has nothing to do with casinos and everything to do with clarity, courage, and knowing when to walk away. I'll see you around.